guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we're going to be ranking the best uniforms, in my opinion, that you should consider picking up for the 50% discount. Now, there's still a few days left on this discount, but I want to give you a disclaimer so that you don't feel FOMO. As good as the 50% discount is on uniforms right now, there will be another one at the end of November this year. So even if you miss some uniforms, or even if you don't have enough crystals this year or this time, you're fine. You're okay. And on the other hand, I also want to mention that uniforms get replaced. Uniforms get, superseded by other uniforms. Characters get, nudged out of their position by newer, shinier toys. That's that's one of the only things that's consistent in mobile gaming, where they have to constantly release things that are stronger than other things in order to get you to buy them. So yeah, there's a lot of uniforms here. I know it's a lot of crystals that I'm saying you could be spending, but you don't have to spend them all. And I'll explain why as I go through this ranking. So first off, we're going to start with replaced soon. Now, this is a little bit subjective. This is a little bit speculative, but with Thor Love and Thunder coming out in early July, you're not going to get very much use, potentially, out of Thor or Valkyrie's uniform. Again, assuming that they get another uniform, maybe assuming that Sif gets a uniform. Again, we don't know. But that plus the Moon Knight Disney Plus show. I think these four uniforms are tricky. And it's especially tricky because I love Valkyrie and I love Sif, and I always talk about how they're such amazing support type characters, and now I'm sort of telling you not to buy them. So I know how that sounds, but I also have to do my due diligence, and I have to, tell you guys honestly, yeah, with July only 2 months away, you may not get more than 2 months, or maybe 2.5 months at most if they delay the update so that they can use spoilers. You may not get more than 2.5 months of use out of these two particularly, and then possibly out of those as well. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, you can still purchase whatever uniform you want, but yeah, those uniforms are definitely a riskier purchase. Now we come to the sort of off-meta category, and I could have added more uniforms to this list. I absolutely could have. Where's Kingo? Where's so on and so forth? But I didn't, because they would have all just gone into the off-meta category. Now we're going to start with Luna and Cable, which is a pretty spicy thing to say right at the top, but I'm pretty confident that they're off-meta. And what off-meta means, it doesn't mean it's a bad character. What off-meta means is that the character has just been replaced and is no longer top. They're no longer number one in any one category, and they're just not amazing for World Boss Ultimate, World Boss Legend. They can be good for it for sure, but there are better characters in their category, either as females, either as blast types, either as heroes, whatever you want to call it. Luna has maybe a little bit more, Luna has maybe a little bit more value for something like Squad Battle, but still, she's been sort of consistently replaced there. And then Cable, we're almost 100% sure he's getting replaced for ABX, and that was sort of the last game mode that he was sort of hanging on to, but not really. It was kind of rickety. So that's where I'm going to put them for now. Again, not bad uniforms by any means, but there are better uniforms out there in the same categories that we will touch on as we climb up the tier list. As recently as Requiem's uniform came out, along with Drax's, she was the best speed villain until she wasn't, with the introduction of Electro and then Green Goblin. Yeah, she's just a leadership now, which is not bad. It's a great leadership, but yeah, off meta in this case. Also, all three members of the Defenders at this point are off meta. Again, they can still make a competent PvP team. They're not bad by any means, but there are just better options out there. Honestly, Bullseye doesn't even deserve to be on this list because Requiem is like leagues ahead of Bullseye. But Bullseye was still holding on to some value in Squad Battle, again, until Electro and Green Goblin showed up, so I just wanted to highlight that there. But yeah, I'm trying to encompass, 50, 60 different uniforms, but also give you like the general consensus that I feel like you should be applying to uniforms and trying to put them into these different buckets so that you can see their value. The one bucket, by the way, that we're not talking about in this video because it would just take way too long and be way too dense information-wise is optional uniforms. I usually make a separate video for that. I don't think I'm going to be making one this time. I may probably make one for Black Friday. But optional uniforms are just uniforms that you buy because they are optional uniforms for a lot of other meta characters. I think if we take stock again at the end of the year for Black Friday and see how many meta characters have matching optional uniforms, then we can get a better idea of where to spend crystals that way. Then we come to the support meta. Basically, these are just characters that are really good supports. Again, they're not necessarily bad characters for other reasons, but they just have support value in lots of different categories. PvE, PvP, ABX, squad battle, etc. They can be good in their own right if you build them heavily for specific content. Like Ebony for me can climb into the 30s for World Boss Legend, which is not bad at all. I mean, he does then have double, triple support, but yeah, again, these characters can be good. Some of them more than others. I'm not going to rank them amongst each other too much here. Like, you know, Hela and Ebony and Proxima are probably a lot better for PvE content than Wave and Taskmaster, but they're still pretty decent characters nonetheless. I mean, Wong is quite fantastic, but I do think for now he's going to be you know, a support, and I don't want to overemphasize Wong's value and then people buy his uniform. You know, I'd rather be a little bit undervaluing the uniforms and people save crystals than the other way around, because like I said, there's always going to be power creep, and Wong is amazing, he's great, I love him, but again, there are better options out there. And then we come to probably one of the more interesting categories. This is called the one-trick pony category. And this is where I put a lot of uniforms that it's just difficult for me to tell people to buy. Well, it's not that it's difficult for me, but it's difficult for me to tell them to buy without knowing exactly what they need. Because these characters are fantastic, but, see that big but there, it really just depends on what you're looking for. What kind of character do you need, and what are you trying to achieve in the game? So that's what a one-trick pony is. It's a character that's not going to be best in any, in multiple categories. They may be best in one category, so they have one trick that they can do really well. That's why they're a one-trick pony. It sounds like a negative thing. It's actually not. It's just that they're not going to, you know, dominate your account. You're not going to use them everywhere, but you could absolutely use them somewhere, and you may need them, in fact, to shore up one aspect of your roster that is sort of lacking. But again, it's hard for me to say, yeah, you should definitely pick up Shang-Chi's uniform. You should definitely pick up Betsy's uniform, unless I know your roster and I know that you're missing combat heroes. I know that you're missing those leaderships, or you don't have much investment in mutants and you need some blast mutants or some female mutants to climb certain content or what have you. Again, it really depends on where your roster is. These are all great characters, but they're all basically just doing one thing well or another thing well. So for Wolverine, it's ABX. For Shang-Chi, Captain Falcon, Human Torch, Ultron, Hawkeye, Betsy, and Electro and Ghost Rider, it's World Boss Legend content, maybe a little bit of squad battle. And then for Cersei, generally at this point, it's mostly PvP for the Revive Artifact Cheese. She's pretty good for World Boss, but again, she has the accumulation when damage taken, which makes her a lot more inconsistent than other characters. So I think she's sort of fallen off the horse for that content, and there are better female blast heroes to replace her. And then we come to the final two categories. We have meta and very meta, and I sort of got lazy with these namings. I apologize, but you get what I'm saying, okay? Meta is meta. Very meta is just more meta than the previous meta. And you can also sort of delineate these two lists for PvE and PvP. Not entirely, as you'll see, because Sharon Rogers is in one of them. But what I'm trying to say is that more game modes, when you calculate all the game modes in Marvel Future Fight, more of them lean towards player versus environment, player like PvE content, than lean towards PvP. There's really only like 3 PvP game modes, or 4 maybe. So because of that, PvP just, you know, isn't at the top of most players' lists when they're spending crystals. And also, most good PvP characters right now, like these 3 goons, are really expensive uniforms regardless. Now that I'm here, and now that we've just talked about these 3 heavyweights, it's a great time to mention our sponsor for today. Our sponsor for today is me. I'm sponsoring myself to tell you, stop buying uniforms for characters that you don't own. It's a very bad practice, and it basically traps you into building that character, not knowing whether or not they'll be meta in the next 6 months to a year. So don't do that. Save your crystals, and you know what? Even if it's not a 50% discount and it's just a 40% discount, you can always build them next month. And then if you build them next month when you already have them and you buy their uniform, then you'll have a much better experience. I still see players to this day buying uniforms or thinking about buying uniforms for characters that they are weeks or months away from getting, and it makes no sense. So yeah, please be careful of that, guys. Please don't fall into that trap. I know the FOMO is real, and people are always talking about, like, this is the new uniform, you gotta go get it. You really don't. You can honestly wait, you'll be fine. So yeah, Sharon is here in meta. She's still very good, don't get me wrong, but yeah, she's not very meta, and I know that she's not meta for PvP. So in her case, it's PvE. For these 3, it's mostly PvP. However, interestingly enough, Dr. Doom is actually losing value in PvP these days because he gets clobbered by a lot of newer characters. Like, he just gets one-tapped by Emma. He kind of gets one-tapped by America Chavez with her third skill as well. So I think some players might be shifting Dr. Doom to a PvE build, in which case he's still very, very good. So Dr. Doom's balance of power is shifting, but that's not actually making him worse. It's just making him meta for a different category, which is pretty funny, but also very accurate. And then we have Black Dwarf here for World Boss Legend, World Boss Ultimate, and a little bit of ABX. Same thing with Dr. Doom. So again, they're like 1.5, and then Kate Bishop. These are like 1.5 trick ponies, right? They're not a one trick pony. They're like a 1.5 to 2 trick pony, and that's good enough. That's good enough, right? To be meta if you're almost at the top for 2 different game modes. And so we come to very meta. We're gonna start with the new uniforms here because surprise, surprise, they are extremely meta. Both Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch. But then we have some interesting additions. We're going to add Spider-Man here. Of course, for Spider-Man and Loki, I'm only adding one of their 2 uniforms, perhaps their preferred uniforms, but you can obviously go with the black and gold uniform for Spidey if you're more PvE oriented, and I would still say he's very meta. Or you can go with the the President Loki, and I would still say he's very meta. It really doesn't matter. I do think these ones are a little bit more valuable at this point in time in the game, but again, it's personal preference. It's what your account needs. It's what the build that you're going for is going to use most. Beyond these 4 here, we actually get some interesting additions. I'm actually going to put Green Goblin up here in very meta. And I know it's bold, and he's basically the only tier 2 character on this list entirely, which blows my mind. But you know what? It's true. World Boss Ultimate, Squad Battle, ABX, GBR, he obliterates so many game modes. It's crazy. It's mind-boggling, and it's mind-boggling if only for the fact that he's tier 2, and just how insanely good he could be if he gets a proper tier 3. We'll have to wait and see. He might just get a lame tier 3, and then the tier 2 is just the compensation for it. But yeah, he is absolutely meta, and he is the reason why Electro's not higher on this list. He is the reason why Requiem is down there. So yeah, if you're pushing all of the other speed villains down with how oppressively good you are, that makes you very meta. Yeah, that's sort of the definition of meta, right? So yeah, and then we have Emma Frost here. A lot of people just use her for PvP these days, but they forget that she's also the best mutant female for like other content, not ABX, for like World Boss and pushing and stuff like that. She's very, very strong, and she claps. Thena, although she did get replaced by Scarlet Witch in ABX, and I was tempted to put her down here in meta. She's still very, very good for other content. Squad Battle, World Boss Ultimate, World Boss Legend. Like, she is still very, very good. She's even decent for things like Dispatch being universal. So yeah, I still think she deserves to be up here, although she is slipping a little bit. Makari, as always, just absolutely fantastic. I'm not trying to rank these guys amongst each other, but if I had to, maybe I would do something like that. I don't know. And then we have Supergiant. Supergiant is still really, really good, and still a really you can't see Supergiant because of my camera, but yeah, Supergiant's still really, really good, and definitely worth the investment because of her dominance in different content. She's still a little bit difficult to play, but still very, very good, and still untouched for PvP despite being a bit of a sleeper. So that is the list right here of the uniforms that I think you should be considering or not considering. I think the first 4 categories are things that you should consider, and then the last 2 are ones that you should consider not buying at the moment. However, you build your account the way that you want, you play the game that you want, and that's going to be the one that makes you the happiest, and you have the most fun, and that's going to be the best one. Keep in mind, although I put the support meta down here, the support meta in a lot of cases can actually be more valuable for your account than the meta category or the one trick pony. So in terms of actual value to your account, some people might say that it actually should be ranked this way, because you build out your DPSs in the top row, and then you support them with supports and leaderships in the second row. But again, I'm just doing it this way because it's just easier to flow that way. But yeah, supports are sort of underrated in this game, and I think a lot of accounts end up getting fewer supports or ignoring supports for a long time, and they're like, oh, I can't clear content, and I'm like, well, let me look at your account, and oh, you have a bunch of DPSs and no leads and no supports. Well, that's kind of silly. So yeah, I do want to overemphasize the support meta category a little bit, and it's very, very underrated. Last but not least, we have Captain America, Gilgamesh, Cyclops, Deadpool, and Winter Soldier down here at the bottom, not doing anything. Did I forget about them? Was I supposed to rank them? No, they're there because a sort of honorable slash dishonorable mention. Now, I will say that Captain America is head and shoulders above most of these other 4 characters, but they sort of represent the same thing. They're not bad characters by any means, but they're also not going to be best in any one category or even second best in any one category. So they're sort of just good-ish. Winter Soldier and Deadpool are a bit worse than the other 3. Gilgamesh relies heavily on the rest of your team for PvP, i.e. Cersei and his artifact. And then Cyclops at this point is a bit of an overrated support. I still see people saying they're going to build up Cyclops when I'm looking at Wave, when I'm looking at Echo, when I'm looking at all these other better support out there that are just like head and shoulders eclipsing Cyclops, buff-wise. And then Cap, like, I would want to put him in off meta. I guess that's probably where he's best to be put next to Cable and Luna. Like, he's much better than, like Gambit and well, not much better, but he's better than like Gambit, much better than Bullseye. But yeah, that's sort of the thing with Captain America. He's sort of just skirting the line between valuable and not quite valuable. So I would probably steer clear of the uniform at this point. There are just better options further up in the combat category, whether you're going for heroes like Shang-Chi and Wolverine or villains like Dr. Octopus and Cull Obsidian. But again, that's just my pick. Captain America does have quite a bit of flex because he turns into a blast villain. I know that. He's a striker, yeah. But yeah, I do think that sometimes his sort of the character itself, Captain America, gets overhyped a little bit more than the uniform, and that sort of inflates its value. So yeah, I wanted to highlight that, and I also wanted to highlight uniforms that you should probably just straight up avoid at this point until they get better uniforms or until better supports, etc. come along. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think. Smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.